So here we are in the National Library of Scotland. We're down on one of the stack floors. Normally for Doors Open Day we'd welcome people in, we'd give them tours of this area so they could see how the collections are stored and how they're fetched for readers. But what we also try to do is we also try to let them see an unseen part of the library, which lies not only beneath the library but within the streets of the old town of Edinburgh. So we've come through from the book storage area into this area that we refer to as the Void. And it's beneath the library building, but it's also beneath George Forth Bridge itself. If you look here to the left hand side of me, you can actually see that we've tried to utilise as much space as possible. And so in these archways here, we've put our huge containers for our water harvesting system. And this is primarily used for our sprinkler system. As you can imagine, with a library which contains over 30 million books, there's a lot of flammable and combustible material, so we have to put any fires out as quickly as possible. The tanks themselves, they're 2.7 metres in diameter, 9.2 metres high, 8.5 metres in circumference, and they contain a volume of 48.6 cubic metres itself. So here we are actually standing within George Forth Bridge. We're in the bridge's superstructure. And when you look up, you can actually see there's doorways, portals and window frames cut into the structure of the building itself. And that's because they were used to create chambers within the building's superstructure. When George Forth Bridge was built in the 1830s, the population of Edinburgh increased dramatically, and as a result, space was at a premium throughout the old town. So you find that the North Bridge and the South Bridge and the far side of the Royal Mile, that was primarily used for housing. So for example, there was slum housing, there was illicit stills within the structure of the bridges themselves. Here on this side of the old town, most of the buildings on either side of George Forth Bridge were commercial ventures. So as a result, they turned these chambers into storage areas. So for example, on the western side of George Forth Bridge from where we're standing just now, there used to be a large seed wholesalers and seed merchants, and they would use the chambers of the bridge to keep their material and keep their seeds because it was such a cool and dry environment. Okay, so the area that we're standing in just now we refer to as the Void. We refer to it as the Void for good reason. Here, see the structure here on the right hand side? That's the library building itself. Here on my left is George Forth Bridge. So as you can see, there is an actual gap between the two structures itself. The National Library building, although it looks quite old, is a relatively modern building. It was only designed and built in the 1930s and it wasn't completed until 1956. Prior to that, the building that was on this site was the old Edinburgh Sheriff Courthouse, which had been built in the 1860s. On my left hand side, George Forth Bridge, it had been called for by the 1827 Edinburgh Improvement Act, which had requested a new way of communication from the Lawn Market to the country of the south by way of a road and bridge which spanned the Cowgate Valley. It gave a more genteel and sophisticated way for people to be able to travel around Edinburgh. Back in the day, if you want to travel from the southern suburbs to get to the old High Street, what you would have to do is you would have to come down from the direction of the Meadows, down the south side of the Cowgate Valley, and then navigate your way through a maze and a warren of narrow closes and wynds up to the High Street itself. Being the capital of the Enlightenment, it wasn't a very enlightened way for the genteel folk of Edinburgh to travel around their city. So though the bridge itself was constructed in the 1830s, through material within library collections, we know what was here beforehand by using old maps and accounts of the old city of Edinburgh. When you look at the old maps, the bridge itself was built on a series of narrow closes and narrow wynds, such as Turk's Close, Forrester's Wynd, but the one that we're standing on here, which follows the route of what used to be called Liberton's Wynd. The Liberton's Wynd was famous for a couple of reasons. Most importantly because at the north end of it was where the executions took place in Edinburgh, and you can still see that mark today. When you go up to the High Street, you'll see 3 brass plaques hammered into the pavement. That marked the north end of Liberton's Wynd. So if you carried down in a straight line effectively from there, you would end up where we're standing here just now. So I hope you enjoyed that brief tour of the Void. We're sorry we can't welcome anyone to the library for any visits on this Doors Open Day, but fingers crossed things will improve next year and we'll be in a position to welcome people back to the library to have like a proper tour in person. If you're interested in finding out more about the history of the National Library and history about the Void, please go online to our website www.nls.uk. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.